price discovery is something I really wanted to get into with you because I'm going to lay out my understanding of why I think it doesn't exist in the current US market, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong here in my assumptions, right? Because I think I'm not the only one who has this opinion of the people who are going to be listening. So my prior to GameStop, my understanding had basically been the stock market is, say I have 100 shares of Apple and I want to sell them. I go and like put them up for sale in the market, basic understanding. And then someone who wants to buy 100 shares of Apple comes along and goes, oh, okay, I'll buy that, right? However, what seems to happen in my understanding of it is someone goes, I want to sell 100 shares of Apple. Market maker comes in the middle, goes, yep, we'll have that. They take them. And then at some point, maybe they sell them on to someone else, maybe they don't. And to me, that just seems like there's no accurate discovery of what the price should actually be based on what other people in the market, aside from that market maker, are willing to pay for it. And that just feels like, especially in the case of if I'm going out into the market and wanting to buy shares that aren't available, that can just be synthetically created by the market makers in order to increase or have maximum liquidity. It feels like that's not satisfying supply and demand. That's just someone saying, oh, you want to buy it? Sure, I got it. Yeah, here you go, take it. Without actually having it. And it seems to me that completely defeats the purpose of the price discovery aspect of the market. Like, am I misunderstanding something here?
No, I think that there's a lot of truth in it. And this has actually been, so trying to think, because there's a lot going on in that question and that answer. So first I will say this. Let's start with the other side. The other side would say there are two mechanisms for price discovery. There's the quote in the market, and then there are the trades that are happening. And so even though you don't interact with the quote, your trade gets printed to the tape. And so there is some price discovery happening. Now, I think that there's a pretty good case to make that if trades aren't hitting a lit quote, that there is a dramatic decrease in their contribution to price discovery. I don't want to say it's zero, but I will say it's dramatically lower than it otherwise would be if it were hitting that quote. So I do think that there is a case to be made that by internalizing and diverting all of this order flow off exchange, that there is a dampening of demand. And so that means the price is not reflective of the actual supply and actual demand. And then the other side of it, which is the supply question, is that's absolutely true. You know, if you're a market maker and you can sell shares without having even located them, it does seem like, and I was thinking about this question the other day. I was like, the number of outstanding shares that a company has is a floor, and it's, you know, obviously more shares can be created through stock loan and such, and that increases the float, it increases the outstanding shares. There's no way for it to go the other direction. Like, you can't actually go below the outstanding shares, and that seems weird to me. I don't have a really good answer for how you would address that, honestly, but something there still, that seems off to me. But, you know, in terms of price discovery, I do think that there is a significant impact on supply and demand through this practice of market makers executing all of these retail orders off exchange. And frankly, they brag about it. Right? They legitimately brag about it. So the SEC has proposed a slate of new rules in U.S. markets, and a couple of those rules would work together to mostly eliminate this practice and bring most retail orders on exchange into these auction facilities. And you know, feel how you might about the auction model. I personally am not a huge fan. I think it's better than what we have today, but I think a simpler what's called a trade at rule would be a better solution. But regardless, the model that's been proposed by the SEC is this auction model. And one of the ways that the market makers are arguing against this model is by saying, well, in the retail auction on exchange, you know, firms would have no obligation to fill orders, whereas in this internalization system, you know, they contract with the retail broker and they have to fill every order. And what that means, and what they say they do, is that means they cross-subsidize. So they take the money they make from the stocks that are easy to trade, and they use that to subsidize and fill orders in stocks that are less liquid and harder to trade. Now, this is the case they're making. And now when I hear that, what I hear is we provide inferior execution in easy to trade stocks so that we can distort supply and demand in the harder to trade stuff. And I've said this to the SEC. I'm like, that's what they're saying. That's not what we want, right? If something is not liquid, if it's not easy to trade, well, then the price should reflect when there's large amounts of demand for that stock. So I think that this all is sort of wrapped up in this question of price discovery. And I find some of the times I find what these firms, the case that these firms make, to be kind of funny, because I don't think it says what they think it says, because they're so sort of wrapped up in the world that they're in that they don't really think about what they're actually saying. And I think this is a really good example of that.
Yeah, it's literally that scene from The Big Short. Like, there's no, are they confessing? It's like, no, they're bragging.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly, right? It's so funny.
Hey everyone, thanks for making it right the way to the end of the podcast. I love that you tuned in this long. Do me a favor, hit subscribe, because 80% of you bastards are not subscribing, but you're watching my videos. See you next time.